Good morning to you all. Arandit Adderachu. Any Amharic speakers teaching anyone by your side, or am I talking to myself now? All right, so good morning. I'm very honored to be here in front of you today. Today, of course, I will be introducing the panelists, three amazing panelists from three different African countries, and myself also representing Ethiopia and my company, Growth Africa, which is an accelerator which works across African countries, multiple countries. We also operate in Ethiopia. We work with growth stage businesses. We are sector agnostic, and of course, develop and enable businesses to be innovative businesses, not only just businesses, innovative and impact-oriented, value-adding businesses to be able to scale and be investment ready as well. So without further ado, without making you wait for too long, let me invite my panelists today and allow them to introduce themselves as they take their seats. So today with us, we have Ajibola Ojukoya from AfriLab, Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen. Next up would be Umnat Ephraim from Rizlink, Ethiopia. We now have, last but not least, our friend from Uganda, Kenneth Puesije. Kenneth Puesije from TechBuzz, Uganda. Great. So let's start from Kenneth, and if you introduce us about yourself, tell us about yourself, what you do, and then we'll continue.
Thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Twesije. There is a mistake somewhere. I'm not from Nigeria. I am from Uganda. Briefly about me, I am the founder and team leader at TechBuzz Hub, or founder and CEO at TechBuzz Hub. And what we do at TechBuzz Hub is simply we provide affordable and flexible office facilities as low as $5 a month. Yeah, as low as $5 a month. So any startup can at least afford the first package. Of course, we have other expensive packages, but that's where we begin. But I do not only run TechBuzz, I also lead policy with Startup Uganda. Startup Uganda is an association for innovation and entrepreneurship support organizations in Uganda, which is a convener of, again, innovation hubs in Uganda. Currently, I am leading the ecosystem in Uganda to have startup policies and laws, and we are midway the journey. We already have confirmation of government to go ahead and develop the policy, and sooner or later we shall see an enabling environment in Uganda, both with an act and a policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenneth, talking about and touching a little bit about ecosystem and environment, but that would be a very good way to jump into the discussion and the topic of the day. Let's go to Ajibola. Ajibola.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ajibola Odukoya. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at AfriLabs. AfriLabs is the largest organization focused on innovation in Africa. We're currently in 54 countries, 230 cities, and we have 465 hubs currently, physical hubs in Africa. We do a lot of policy advocacy, transferring knowledge between private sector and government. We've supported about 9 startup acts. We're also big in financing, big in grants, and also capacity building for the ecosystem. So we're basically the mother of hubs in Africa, and we provide platforms for startups to communicate with each other, and other stakeholders see what's going on in the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amnat?
Good morning. My name is Amnat, and I support the people behind your food. Basically, I am an agribusiness consultant supporting stakeholders working in the agriculture sector. Of course, from the business side, I support women business owners to establish their business as well as scaling up. And when it comes to scaling up, I support them with market linkage, providing them business trainings, and modernizing their business basically. And basically, this is what I do.
Thank you very much. So, seeing at the whole ecosystem and everything, there are elements and pillars of ecosystem, and in the ecosystem to work properly, there needs to be proper alignation and also, alignment and also convergence between ecosystem players and all. So, but how do you define ecosystem for yourself here in this context? Let me give the chance to Ajibola first.
So you mean, how do you define the ecosystem? So
Yes.
the ecosystem it makes up of different stakeholders, right? The private sector, startups cannot exist on their own. They need government, they need academia, they need development agencies, they need the whole, every player that makes an economy great. That is the ecosystem. And now what defines an ecosystem is the quality of information that ecosystem is generating. I've got a background in finance. Information is used to determine investments, is used to determine risk. So, we need to aggregate our information and provide it in a different light. So in the scope of Africa, there's a whole lot of bad media around Africa, but the startup ecosystem is positioned to change that narrative. There's a lot of opportunities. The young people are here. We need to start attracting African finances, apart from finances from everywhere else, but we do have, high net worth individuals in Africa, and they should be investing in African startups. So that is the birth and the creation of that ecosystem. It has to be organic.
Thank you, Ajibola. Amnat, let me come to you. And in this ecosystem, and also, of course, through the works that you do with startups and businesses, there are value chains. And each value chain in its own would have part of ecosystem and also its own vehicle that works. How do you see that role in the overall general ecosystem that we are discussing today?
I would say, coming from the agribusiness side, it's one of the biggest pillars. I'm not trying to shift the balance to my sector, but people need to eat to do anything. And the ecosystem basically for me is the moment a business person starts to think about a business idea, that is where the ecosystem starts. Where do they get information? Where do they get the land, the input, the technical support? And it continues like that. Once they start operation, there is the regulation, there is the policy support, there is the finance, which is the biggest issue here. And then there's the most important thing, market, access to market. And how do they market that? So for me, it's a big, big world in the agribusiness sector.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Amnat. And Kenneth, let me come to you. You were telling us about Startup Uganda and how it is part of the ecosystem that you are operating in, and it is an association or a Startup Uganda is formed by different stakeholders. So what is the role of it, and how is that going to enable and facilitate at the end of the day to foster the tech industry and tech startups movement?
Thank you very much. I just want to mention this. on record, sitting with the COO of AfriLabs. I should also mention that TechBuzz Hub is proudly a member of AfriLabs. So we are part of the 460 plus hubs that were mentioned. So to start with, I want to first also bring to light what an ecosystem means, in my opinion. Ecosystem simply is a biological word. And if you remember very well, in biology, it simply means that nothing can exist on its own. If we see plants exist certainly because there is a human being or there are animals. Because if animals do not provide manure, then they will struggle. If there is not maybe a good weather, of course, we don't have an ecosystem in general. So in my opinion, why we have a startup ecosystem is simply because we need each other. Whether you're a startup, whether you're an incubator, government, development partner, we need each other. So, and coming to the question, Startup Uganda is, as I said, is a convener, and one of the major roles of Startup Uganda is to advocate for policy, to bring the ecosystem players together, and of course be able to have a stronger footprint, indeed to advocate again for policy, or to attract bigger financing into the ecosystem, because with one person, certainly you will be limited by the networks and how you can convince that you are capable of changing or influencing the whole ecosystem. But then if you come together as one, you have a stronger and bigger voice, and that is why we started Startup Uganda. But also, just to mention, 10 years is just my personal experience. Startup Uganda is just 4 years old. So we are not yet to the level of AfriLabs, and we are just, Startup Uganda is just for Uganda, so you do not confuse it with AfriLabs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenneth. Actually, Startup Uganda being 4 years old, we have just launched in Ethiopia an association for startup ecosystem builders only last week. So we would be coming to you and sharing experiences as well and everything. And I was expecting a round of applause for the inauguration of the launch of EASE.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so you can see everywhere in any jurisdiction it's happening. Movements are happening, associations are being formed, and there are also big players like AfriLab with experience and a lot of members. But where does government come in here? And what is the role of government, right? We don't have anyone here, so it's our chance to bash the government if we wanted. The other day I was told by a panelist from government, everybody always forgets that government would always be there. So I think it's a factor that we need to also entertain and work very well with. So let me open the floor. Anybody could pick this question up.
Okay, let me represent government, because I used to work in government for about 2 years. So I was formerly the head of e-government for Nigeria. And this was me coming from private sector in the UK and France and trying to impact knowledge back into Africa. And the role of government is very key. And I think even government may not realize how key it is. The first role for government is hiring the right people in the right positions. Because when you have that, then they understand how to move forward, they understand the problems, and how to translate it into the private sector. So the government is responsible for creating that enabling environment, creating infrastructure and policies that will enable, the startup ecosystem grow. Another role of the government is making sure that knowledge is being transferred. So Africa has the highest youth population in the world, but it isn't all an advantage. This means that what is also going on with the elders, they need to also transfer knowledge to the young people, because young people are moving straight ahead, not learning from the past or consulting elders. And also these elders are support systems as well, because anybody that's an entrepreneur, you're bound to fail at one point or the other. But an elder will give you that advice to say, I failed before, I got myself back up, and this is what you need to do. So government needs to also create some sort of platforms where the elder ones and the young ones can communicate, move together, and see how we can, innovate African innovations as well. So past generations have always been innovating. It could be with electricity, with technology or not, but these innovations do exist. We do have African innovations, right? So the young people need to learn, maybe go back to the townships, to the villages, start the R&D from there, and see how you can digitize the solutions in the new market. So I think government has a key role to play in building this ecosystem.
Great. Amnat?
Yes. I would say government is like a father. A father, I would expect, would think ahead of their children. What do they need? What are they going to face in the future? How can I solve the issue or the challenge they are going to face in the future? And that he is going to clear the way for their children. Just like that, I would expect a government to create a conducive environment for any innovator. Basically, they would need a policy, a regulation that supports or that is aligned with their innovative idea. When it comes to innovation, the main challenge is when that policy is needed whenever you request it. It's not already there, but sometimes as a business owner, you would have to push the government to come up with the government and the environment, basically. And then there's the infrastructure. Internet is the world's language these days. Internet connection would create that environment where anyone can share information. Information is power these days. So government is the backbone of the infrastructure. And I also worked at a government organization, and there are many research that are being conducted, but do they really get to be applied on the ground? I guess that's $1 million question. But I would say government is the one who creates the ecosystem for everyone. And we, as the children, are the ones who should support the government by giving the government, whichever side it is, by giving them information, by creating that collaboration to work with them. The private sector is, I would say, has a role. There's a key role by the private sector, and they are the ones who should push for any change they would require.
Great, thank you very much. Kenneth, if you wanted to add on that, because we know often in many reports, Uganda also comes on top of most entrepreneurial countries in Africa. So is a government's role in creating such kind of environment really of paramount, or is it the entrepreneurs who are driving this? And what any other points you would like to add?
Thank you very much. Now that you've mentioned we are maybe we were, I think that was in 2015 when they crowned Uganda as the most entrepreneurial country. Let me also mention that we are the second young country, I think, in this world. But also, I want to start by adding something on what my fellow panelist Ajibola said about knowledge transfer and what have you. I don't know whether you know, but Africa contributes 2% of the global knowledge base. Just 2%. That is Africa. How big we are and everything, we only contribute 2%. What does that mean? To the entrepreneurs and to government. For me, it's actually giving the driving wheel to the young people. If I had the opportunity to speak to any government official, and more to be particular, the nation leaders, I would tell them, we don't mind you taking the driving seat, whether how many years, but as long as you give the young people the driving seat and there is transition every now and then they have the ability to actually increase this knowledge base maybe to 10% in the next 5-10 years, maybe 20, maybe 50, and with the emergency of, new technologies, then we can actually do much more as Africa. And I want to challenge the audience and, of course, the panelists. We need to drive this conversation. We need to drive this conversation. And secondly, I think for me, the role of government, especially in a conversation like this, is providing markets to our solutions. Everyone in this house has a solution, has a product, has a service. But guess what? You are struggling to find market, even outside, Ethiopia, even outside your other countries. Why? Because your own countries are not giving you or are not prioritizing you. So for me, I think marketing and providing access to markets from government, because we know that the biggest consumer in any nation, government is the biggest consumer. So should government allow to consume on shelf products, solutions? Why should you go to India to get a solution working for government? Yet you have young people who can actually build that. If they have no ability, just find one who has the vision and hire the Indians or Americans or whatever it is, and they build the solution from here. And as they're building the solution, you don't know how much knowledge transfer you're actually driving to your country. In the end, that same knowledge base is going to trickle down and down and down to even the lowest person. Before you realize, the country is actually very high end in terms of knowledge. And that drives me to maybe my third point, capacity, which I think, again, Ajibola highlighted. I feel like every day, we need to think about continuous learning, continuous improvement. Recently, we are actually running a program under AfriLabs called Investor Readiness Meetups, Virtual Investor Readiness Meetups. And I've met a number of entrepreneurs who say, we have gone through enough of investor readiness. But sit them down to ask, do you have your books ready? What do you use for this? What do you use for the other? Do you even have a projection for the next 3 years? They will tell you no. Why? Because they feel entitled. If I go in one session and they tell me, oh, there is a presentation of investor readiness, that's enough. No. If we, actually, I think someone once mentioned that we start dying the moment we stop learning. So we need to every day think about learning. And of course, we know this has to be facilitated by government in one way or another. I know Nigeria implemented a compulsory entrepreneurship policy in 2007. And certainly that is why Nigeria is highly grown, maybe, because at university you must do an entrepreneurship course. Now, if government comes in and says, hey, we are saying let entrepreneurship be standard, a standard course or program at university or at high school or ICT or something like that, and that is how we drive growth through government. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. A lot of points you mentioned, actually. I'm extremely tempted to become a panelist myself because of all the points you mentioned and the buttons you touched. As a market for government, and not only as a client to the providers of service in the tech industry and others, but also I believe the government has, of course, it plays a major role in making sure that the level ground, the playground is level, and also supporting those that would need support. Also, opening up the market by itself could facilitate and play a major role in enabling market ecosystem. So with Ethiopia's context, the inflation and everything, prices are going up except for only one thing: data and airtime. And that is because of the opening up of and introduction of other players. So this tells you, and that has come from a belief and vision of, allowing and opening up the market and leveling up all the playground in the long term, of course, in a moderated and controlled manner. And that allowed, I can see in my line of work as well, encouraging a lot of young people to develop and work and be invested in developing tech-enabled startups and solutions to their surroundings and challenges that they see. So multiple roles the government plays. Thank you for pointing those out. Thank you very much. Anybody who wants to add on this point, I would give you a chance. Otherwise, would proceed. Okay. So now that we have seen the role of government and markets plays, what is also the role of innovators, innovation hubs and centers like yourselves? Let's start with Ajibola.
Okay, so the roles of the innovators is to innovate, right? So what we've done at AfriLabs, we've created different programs and products that would support the ecosystem. So we've run a 3-year program called the ACBP, which he's been involved in. It's the AfriLabs Capacity Building Program. It was a €2 million funded program, lasted for 3 years, went through all the continents, gave at least a minimum of $15,000 to each hub that participated, and also supported their startups. And then as a spin-off from that, we built the AfriLabs Academy, which is the first curriculum-based certification course on creating a hub, creating an accelerator, creating an incubator, and creating a working space for hubs. And then we're also breaking that out into structured and unstructured learning, because we've seen that, we already have a Pan-African platform. We then need to turn it into an education platform. So it's going to be ready next year. It's going to literally be the YouTube for learning. So anybody who is skilled, that has, information, can, go there, start a live broadcast or live video and start teaching in your local language to Africans. I think that is something that really goes to the grassroots, because at startups, we're operating on a level where we're also moving apart from the poorest of poor and the weakest of weak. So we still need to see how we can reconnect. And then we also created a fund called Catalytic Africa. It's a matching fund in association with ABAN. So ABAN is the Africa Business Angel Network. So what we've done is we're trying to encourage Africans to invest in African startups. If an angel investor invests less than $10,000 into a startup, AfriLabs would double that investment as a grant to the startup. And if they invest more than 10,000, we would triple it as a grant to the startup. So we're supporting the startup ecosystem to grow and accelerate faster. There's one startup in Cameroon that was a winner, or got the funds and went up to raise up to $6 million after the support grants. Because apart from just the grant, we open you up to our network of VCs, our network of stakeholders, donor agencies, and give you that real good exposure. We've also created, because as he said, we've been recognized as 2% contributors of data to the world, and that's because even the data we collect is being reported by platforms that are not domiciled in Africa. So if I write a report and post it on LinkedIn, the reference is to LinkedIn, not to me in Africa. So we've built our own platform. It's our own version of LinkedIn. It's called AfriLabs Connect. The website is afrilabsconnect.net. So this has 10 user profiles. So government, startups, academia, donor agencies, media, everyone can create their own profile, and then it gives you a feed, so you organically see what's going on in the ecosystem. And also for foreign organizations as well, because we all know that economy is tight, so you can sit wherever you are and still have organic knowledge of what's going on in Africa through that platform. We launched it about a week ago, and we already have about 8,000 users, so it's really something that is needed. We've also created our first Gen AI that could respond in English and French to African questions, and it's basically ChatGPT for Africa, right? It would write you a business proposal in the African context, and we'll also load in all our research and data into it, so we're also owning the narrative as well, because if we don't do that, if you go to general AI, it's just going to give you a narrative that doesn't belong to us. We need to start feeding it data as well. Thank you. So as a spin-off from that as well, we created an AfriLabs Connect deal room. So the first catalytic fund is targeted at early stage, but the deal room is targeted at mature startups. So if you're a startup looking to scale up or looking at follow-on funding, Series A, Series B, we already have a list of VCs who have tailored their business process to Africa. It's really kind of patient investment, right? So they understand what's going on here, and the criteria are not too stringent. They're quite flexible with the demands and how they release their money. It's going to be in milestones. And we also created business support services like the investment readiness program he mentioned. We have a partnership, a Seoul Africa partnership with Builder.ai. This is one of the fastest growing companies in the world. And what they do is using AI to create apps. So you don't need to have any technical knowledge. It's a no-code platform. All you need to do is submit your problem statement, and the AI will literally build you a prototype in 30 seconds, right? So you can move to market in a week with your idea using Builder.ai. Africa needs to catch up. We don't have the time to go to a technical school, study for 3 years. We need solutions now, like to solve today's problems. So using AI, we're accelerating products into the market in partnership with Builder.ai. And we also have the likes of MTN as well as partners who are opening up their enterprise solutions and their customer base to our startups. So when you're pitching and you have MTN as a partner, instead of saying, oh, you have a user base of 10,000, you can now say you have MTN's customer base of 200 or 300 million people, and that would raise you more capital. An example would be a startup from Egypt who was trying to penetrate the Nigerian market. By the time they were looking to raise $2 million, but by the time they signed a partnership with MTN, they raised $9 million and got a pledge for $1 billion in the next 5 years. So this is the power of collaboration within the ecosystem as well. I think, what else? I think that I'll allow my other panelists contribute as well.
That's actually a lot of information that you have provided us with examples, tangible examples. And not only the role of innovation centers and hubs, but also partners as well. In all the projects and all the things that you told us you are working on as AfriLab, none of them you mentioned were done by AfriLab alone. You were mentioning partners along. So that's an excellent model, and that is exactly the point of this discussion as well. So thank you very much for raising.
The thing about AfriLabs is it's not owned by anyone. There's no one founder, one owner. It's literally the whole community. We have a board of 9 board members representing each region in Africa, and a board member at large with the chair, secretary, and treasurer. And then it's democratic, so the community votes for the board members. And also, we have an annual gathering. Every year, we convene physically together in a new country. I think 2018, we were here in Addis at the AUC. About a week ago, we finished in Kigali, and next year we're going to Cape Town. So we move around a lot trying to convene. And apart from that 1 year convene, we also do regional convenings. And we're also partnered with other events like GITEX Africa as well. We're big partners with that. So if you are planning your event and you need a platform to do it on, you can do it with AfriLabs, or you can come through us to get you a space at GITEX as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So all these collaborations and all, I'll also piggyback on what Aminat mentioned earlier. How could we effectively also involve, academia and other players in this ecosystem that are actually doing research and developing solutions? Usually, how do we leverage that? Aminat, you mentioned that and left it as $1 million question, but it's coming back to you now. $1 million is here.
I would have to go to Uganda for this experience. And in the seed sector, there are researchers trying to come up with drought resistance, productive seeds. And those seeds that have interesting or that are favorable for the farmers. So these researchers, they would get a royalty payment. That is a good motivator for them. So they are always continuously trying to come up with new varieties. This will be sold to the private customers, and they will get, basically the researchers will get royalty payment from all the sales the private companies are making. This is a good example for us. Even Ethiopia can learn a lot from this. In Ethiopia, there are research being done. From what I've seen, they are on the shelf. There are students working on their PhD, master's thesis, but that goes on the shelf. So that collaboration, not only with the government, but as well as with the private sector, is very important. One example, in Ethiopia, we worked on a project called AgriHub. So the farmer faces many challenges. They face a challenge of getting quality input on time with the volume they require. That is the biggest challenge for the farmer. So there was an idea. Why not come up with a one-stop shop where a farmer can get all the inputs in one place? Now we have more than 198 one-stop shops serving more than 10 million farmers. That can be a channel of research. Any new equipment can be channeled through that. And the farmers are indeed getting this kind of innovative equipment. For example, the row planter, they are getting through this channel. And if it's not for this one-stop shop, they wouldn't be able to get this kind of information. Speaking of information, there is the 80-20-25 hotline. A farmer will call on this line and describe their challenge, or there is a pre-recorded information there. So they will just have to press the language they want to use, the information they require. If there is a disease, then they get information about that disease. They also have another option of going to that one-stop shop where there is an expert providing support. It's, for example, if it is a crop, then they will take that infected crop to that shop and get experts' input. So this is where research comes in. If there are new varieties or new information that can be channeled through this one-stop shop, that is wonderful. And then there is one thing we forgot, women. Where do they get information? I work on an incubator for women business owners. The first challenge, they say, is they don't know where to get the information. The men will have drinks, and the business partnership will be facilitated instantly. For the women, they can't go formally because they don't know where to start. Once they start their business, where do they find the market? Where do they get the inputs they want? So these are, sometimes overseen. So what we are trying to do is trying to introduce them to new technologies, new research. For them, a small information, you have no idea what they are doing with this. We link them with a technical expert who is also in the research background. So one nursery of avocado, they were doing all the wrong things. One simple comment or support from a researcher saved their nursery, basically. So all their nursery were being damaged with something they don't even know. Because of that information from the research center, they were able to save their business, scale up their business, and increase the quality of their product. So I believe private sector, government, and other stakeholders have a role in this research aspect.
Thank you very much, Aminat. Really great insights and experiences from on the ground as well. So how do we scale this transfer, Kenneth, this kind of technology and collaboration and other market-enabling experiences? How do we scale them?
Thank you very much. I want to say that what Eminent and Ajibola mentioned, one, for AfriLabs leading the way, I think we have a lot as incubators and innovation hubs. There's a lot we can learn from our seniors, and I think that is what AfriLabs is doing. But just to respond to the question, I think for me, how we can scale technology transfer and so on and so forth, but also the role of innovation hubs, I think value creation sums it up for me. We need to get to a level where you just walk into an innovation hub and your problems are solved. As soon as they say we are signing you up for an incubation program, at any level where they stop, they will just move you to the next innovation hub or accelerator. And from that accelerator, and that definitely talks clearly about what Eminent talked about, collaboration and partnerships. It's not just about PP, public-private partnerships. I think also having same level kind of partnerships is, you remember what we talked about, ecosystem? We must reach a point where we know if I'm an ecosystem enabler, I am not owning a startup. I am facilitating the growth of a startup. And whenever I have conversations, I feel like some startups don't want to associate with incubators because they know at one point an incubator will say, if it was not me, they would be nowhere. So we need to transition from that thinking and mindset. If you have a big development partner supporting you, don't focus on owning that development partner, because at any one point they realize that there is a problem and leave, you will crumble. So we need to get to a point where we know we are sustainable, and then we can build products and services that we shall be able to sell to maybe even startups, maybe even fellow incubators. And I also want to mention that TechBuzz is leading the way in one way or another. We have built a platform that helps innovation hubs and other communities, other enterprise support organizations to have their communities in one place and very openly accessible to the entire marketplace or community. How does it work? Basically, as Ajibola had earlier mentioned, it helps you get your mentors, your talent, your innovators and startups in just a single place. To the extent that at any one point a startup wants to hire, they just go to the platform, look through the few listed, okay, not few, the listed maybe talent, and then decides, I think this fits my profile. I think this fits the person I'm looking for. I think their experience or their training before they got onto the platform actually is very relevant. Because the biggest challenge we see is hiring someone and at the end of the day, they do not be valuable to your organization and you're spending a lot of money on them. In fact, in Uganda, it is common. You hire someone, they expect a salary, but they have nothing in their mind to do with what value they are bringing on table. They just know, I have finished university, I come to your organization, pay me as I learn or as I do. Sometimes we find that some of them are not even learners. So for me, I think how we can manage this transfer is making sure that we are extremely systematic and organized in how we build value for whether it is just building our own sustainability and products for the marketplace, whether it is about the value we are giving to our startups, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. So I would have loved to continue this discussion, definitely. We will, of course, of the stage. So now I'll give 2 minutes to each of you to say a couple of words as a concluding remark. And for that, I would want you to focus on what's next from a global and African context as well in terms of tech and ecosystems and markets. What's next? Where should we focus? What's the next mega trend?
Okay, I would say a renewed mindset, right? We need to change the mindset. Africans need to change the mindset. We're in a space of entrepreneurship, but we're all afraid to fail. Failure is part of the process. If you look at Silicon Valley, because of Silicon Valley is actually academia driven, right? And that's how they were able to scale up. So most of all the failures were documented, were researched. So somebody picks up a project, they fail, somebody else picks it up and develops on top of it layer by layer. But here in Africa, because we get our money from, I would say, people who don't understand the context, it's really hard. So you raise money, you get investment, and then you're afraid. You can't fail, basically, because how are you going to pay back the loans? But we need to create an environment where even when you fail, government can pick you up, or a DFI can pick you up, or a stakeholder can pick you up and say, okay, your failure, but you've had some successes, but how can we, grow this? How can we create another solution on top of what we've learned from this failure? So I think we just need to change the mindset and realize that entrepreneurship is not a straight path. It has a lot of up and down. And really, 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 for you to be an entrepreneur, you have to be kind of crazy, right? It's so risky, especially here in Africa. But you need to just embrace and keep going and just know that there's a community that's supporting you. AfriLabs is open. We're always here to help and support. So I'll just say, let's stop being afraid and let's make real impact.
Thank you very much.
I would say education is the key. When we graduate from university, especially, what do we think? We want to get a nice job, a nice office where we are going to be employed. But how many of those students graduating actually think about starting their own business? I wouldn't blame them because from what I know, there is no course being given about entrepreneurship and innovation. Even if they have some kind of idea, it is going to die with all of the courses that are not directly related with the things on the ground. So incorporating entrepreneur and innovative trainings in their course is the key. TVETs, I have visited one recently, and 90% of the course is theory-based. TVET is basically where students are supposed to practice what they are being taught. It should be the other way around. In Uganda, again, I come back. A student is given basically an opportunity to come up with a business. They are given with support like tractor, seed, chicken, cows, and a land as well within the TVET. And they decide what they produce. So that is a safe environment for them to try their new ideas, which leads me to the hubs. A student should go to these places and try their ideas. You know, everyone, it's not easy for them. Earning money is important. They have a family to support. So creating that environment where they can test their ideas is very critical. Linkage with the private sector. Private sector should be mentoring, coaching, and guiding these students so that they solve their own problem. The private company is facing challenge that can be solved by the students graduating. So creating that environment for them to learn in their organizations. The government will be the major player creating a conducive environment for all the stakeholders involved to try to communicate, to showcase all the success stories, and let's not forget women in this aspect as well.
Thank you very much. As I conclude, I think for me there are about three things. One, let's be intentional. Let's be intentional. And I think just being here is a demonstration of intentionality for me. You had a lot of other many things to do, and you said, now, this particular program, I just have to be there and learn and come back and build my enterprise, irrespective of whether I win or not. I know I will get access maybe to one person who will help me in my business or my startup. That is one. Two is, as GSA says, let's be change makers. I believe that every one of us who is in here is very, very perfectly positioned to influence your family, your friends, and the community where you live. I think we need to do a lot of mentorship and coaching to our fellow colleagues. Don't be in a conversation and you cannot tell people about what you do or how you do it. Yesterday, I was overwhelmed by the speech and presentation of the founder of GSA, where he said, a friend just called him and said, let's go for this hackathon that he had organized. And from there, that is why we're here. So for me, I feel like we need to do a lot of mentorship and support to our young people. And I think Eminate again said that somehow a student gets out of university and that's when they are starting to think what to do. So, and that becomes our responsibility to start identifying these students, if it means visiting institutions, if it means getting involved into institutions. Recently, Tech Buzz Hub got a partnership with the biggest institution in Uganda. Not Makerere, the one you know, but an institution that only teaches postgraduate, masters, and other courses. And why we're doing that is we want to influence the elders. We want to get the elders on the table and tell them, here is what you need to do in your in your organizations. Corporate innovation is here for organizations to transform and transform economies. And so that is the message I think that each and every one of us needs to carry home. And who knows, the next type of GSA will transform many Africans. Thank you very much. That's all I had to say.
A lot of information, a lot of great experiences you have shared. And for me, from all the points that you have mentioned, there are a few things that stood out as a summary. And from the very definition, ecosystem, nobody succeeds alone. So we need to collaborate. And when we talk about collaboration and working together, it has to be beyond face value. Everybody needs to be participating in a meaningful way where their interest is also addressed and they are also contributing to the wholeness and progress of the collective vision. That's what you have said. And mindset also is extremely important in all aspects. And we are talking about tech. So when we talk about tech is not only a tool, it's also a marketplace, it's an enabler, it creates democratization of talent, as you mentioned, Kenneth. It also provides access to information and collaboration, as Ajibola mentioned. It also provides an enormous amount of opportunity to those who are not really close physically and in person to where these informations and opportunities would not otherwise be accessed, as Emnet mentioned and gave us example from her experiences. All these things, and through all these, we have also mentioned about AI, the future and everything, but one key thing still remains and has been constant all across was human beings. It's all about humans. When you talk about tech and whatever in between, it's human beings and their needs, and it has to always be factored in. Youth and women, repeatedly mentioned in this. Thank you very much to you all, Ajibola, Emnet, and Kenneth. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Thank you very much.